Online. Good evening. Good evening. Thanks for that great introduction. You didn't say the good looking part. Good looking
Oh, I apologize. I
and,
left that.
and young. Supposed to say young and good looking. I'm gonna have to, pull back $3 from that 20. So anyway, we're gonna have a good time this evening. I'm always excited to share information with people because I believe that book that I read, it says, people perish for the lack of knowledge. People perish, people die for the lack of knowledge. If you didn't learn a few things during the pandemic, it could cost you your life. If you didn't learn that washing your hands was important and that wearing a mask or a few things like that, people died. And many, many, many people died during the pandemic. So I do believe that knowledge is important and it saves people's lives, and it also enriches people's lives. So we're going to share information this evening, and we're going to be talking about a very common topic, which is the 401k. A lot of people have heard of or participated in or had or just or still have one right now, or getting a job where they're going to be offering one. And so it's better to get a closer look and know what we're talking about, that we can make great decisions. So closer look at 401k. The 401k is commonly known but highly misunderstood retirement supplemental savings program. It's a commonly known but a highly misunderstood retirement supplemental savings program. Is usually provided by many private and some public corporations, some public entities, like several government jobs. Most government jobs would provide a type or form of 401k, 457b, 403b, one of those programs with those same attributes, right? So the 401k is often confused with a pension. Because companies have started to cancel their 401 their pensions, they started to push the supplement, which was the 401k, as if it were the main pension, but it's not. 401k is not a pension. So it's important that we know it is not a pension. It's a retirement supplemental savings program. All right, so let's take a closer look. What do most people believe or understand a pension to be? And I'm giving a little extra information about pension because whenever time you ask someone about retirement, they say, I got my 401k. What's your retirement plan? I have my 401k. Well, the thing about a pension is something that is supposed to give you funds for life. It's a fund for life. It's money that you're going to need. And think about it, in your most vulnerable adult years, which is the years where you may not be able to work like you used to. You may spend 10 or 15 years in a wheelchair because of illnesses related to old age. A pension is supposed to be there giving you the income during all this time. And so, getting a better understanding about that is important, and understanding that the 401k is separate. So I'm going to breeze through this part because I've got some other things about the 401k I want to talk about. So if you look at a pension, what's the definition of a pension? Before it would talk about, income for life and so on and so forth. Today, it's saying that a pension is a retirement pension is a retirement plan that provides a series of payments to an employee after they retire. What does it mean by a series of payments? Why is this so hard to say? It's a program that's going to provide payments to a person after they retire for the rest of their life. Why are they not saying that today? And I see things changing, and I'm calling this out because they like to float ideas and see how we react. before they make it a reality. So pay attention to that, right? Now, definitions: a pension is a retirement arrangement where an employer or an employee organization promises to make regular payments to a retiree. Regular. Why can't nobody say for life? Y'all noticing this? I mean, this means a lot to me, you know. An employer contributes to the pool. This is how it works. An employer contributes to the pool of funds for an employee's future benefit. The funds are invested on the employee's behalf, and the earnings, generate income for so on and so forth. So, but not just the employer contributes money to that pool, the employee contributes also. Part of your work is contributing to your pension. So anyway, that's a pension. Now, when did the 401k start and why? So if you look at this definition, your 401k started back in 1978, right? When Congress passed the Revenue Act of 1978, which would include Section 401k, right? The first 401k plan was implemented in November of 1978, before the Revenue Act went into effect. The law went into effect January 1, 1980. So the 401k was designed to replace the executive profit sharing plans and to include more employees. It allows employees to defer compensation from bonuses or stock options and to avoid being taxed on the compensation until they receive it. So, all along, I thought the 401k was designed and put together to supplement one's retirement income. Right? Well, I guess that's one of those common definitions that came out later on that people look at. But this was designed for a whole different purpose. This was designed so that the executive profit sharing plans, they could have this to replace the executive profit sharing plans. So when you look at a program that was created for executives, and now it's open to everyone, it makes you think, wait a minute, what does the executive know that I don't know? What were they telling them they're not telling me? Right? Because they're giving you the same program, but you're not getting the same information. And by the way, the executives had the profit sharing plans. What plans did the employees have? The non-executive. This is funny. But it's something else when you dig into the information and know, because if you don't understand why a thing was really created, how do you really even know what you have? I'm getting my clock set up, my stopwatch. I always speak with a stopwatch because, I don't talk much. So I got my stopwatch here. And by the way, this first 5 or so minutes, since it's not on my stopwatch, it don't count. All right, let's get on down the road here. All right, so look at the other definition for 401k. It's a defined contribution tax advantage retirement savings plan that is sponsored by one's employer. So it's a defined contribution. All these words mean something. A defined contribution, how much you can contribute, when, what's the limit to contribution, who can contribute, all that kind of stuff is defined here. And then it's a tax advantage. Okay, well, there are different terms, and we're going to look at that word tax advantage and see if really it belongs in the tax advantage group or if it belongs somewhere else, right? Sponsored by one's employer. And most people use this to save for retirement. So if you don't have an employer, if you are your own employer, there are other programs with some of those same advantages or some of those same definitions that you can use for yourself. So it doesn't always have to be an employer. It could be a self program, an individual program, and it mostly goes under the title of IRA, an individual retirement program. So let's get back to the 401k. Y'all see that? Tax advantage. Now let's look at different groups of financial programs or financial instruments, right? You got your taxable financial instruments, your savings, your checking. If you earn money in your savings and checking account, you owe taxes. These things are taxable. This country does not like you to earn money without paying taxes. All right, CDs, mutual funds, stocks, bonds, treasuries, and other. Anytime you earn money in these things, you owe taxes. Then let's look at tax deferred. IRAs, individual retirement accounts. 401k, hey, 403bs, and other pension plan assets like variable annuities, fixed annuities, savings bonds, and others. Now let's look at tax advantage. So here are, let's say, the tax advantage assets are positioned for the future since they receive preferable tax treatment during accumulation and at distribution. So the thing about what makes the difference between the tax advantage, the tax deferred, and the taxable programs is that the tax advantage, you can grow money, and if you follow the guidelines, you can use that money tax-free. So in the tax advantage, you have the Roth IRAs, the single premium, variable life insurance, cash value insurance, 529 college savings fund, single premium whole life programs. You have the annual pay VUL, which is a variable universal life program. One thing they didn't list there that should be really at the top of the list is the index universal life program. But we'll talk about that at another time. So that prior definition is wrong. This prior definition by Investopedia, they say it's a defined contribution tax advantage. It does have some tax advantages, but it doesn't really fit in that group. It's a tax deferred. In other words, you're going to pay taxes on it later, the tax later program. All right, cool. So if you want tax advantage, you have to look at other programs. If you want tax deferred, that's where the 401k, 403b, and some of the others fit. All right, so let's get into a little bit more. Types of 401k. For the most part, you have your standard 401k, you have your Roth 401k, right? And these are the contribution limits for 2024. It's not too clear there, so I brought it up this way. So with your 401k contribution limit for 2024, it was up to $23,000. But listen, this is for regular 401k and Roth 401k. The Roth and the regular have the same limits when it's 401k, okay? And then between you and your employer, contributions can go up as high as $69,000. Some people call that the backdoor 401k thing. We'll talk about that another time. So if you are older than 55 or so, they have what they call the catch up. They give you a little extra. Well, here it says 50 to 59 or 64 plus and so on. So you can put some extra money in it. But this works for both the regular 401k and it also works for the standard 401k and the Roth 401k. Now, there are other Roth programs like the Roth IRA. That program has a big limit on it, like $7,500 a year or something like that. But if it's a 401k, the Roth and the standard pretty much have the same limit. So if you get to thinking about that, and most people don't know, most companies don't have a Roth 401k, they have a standard. But if you have an opportunity to get a 401k at all, always ask, do you have a Roth program? Because it puts you in a much better position. That makes sense? All righty. So now let's talk about, this is just to accentuate the fact that the Roth 401k contribution limits for 2024 is 23,000 or 69,000 with the company makeup and so on and so forth, right? Now, taking a closer look at a 401k, just kind of give you guys a couple of examples, okay? You know, most of the time they say, well, the market goes up and down and so on and so forth. And I'm gonna put a graph in here Thursday to make sure you can see this. But if your 401k is usually in the stock market, right? And that goes up and down. And they tell you cute things like, don't worry, the market goes up and down, but it always come back. Your money will come back. Do not believe that. But let's talk about it anyway. If you look at your 401k opening statement, January, they say 2024, you have $50,000 in your 401k. And then at the end of the year, this person have $50,000, the beginning statement, they're having a $250 a month contribution. And at the end of the year, the statement say $40,000. Now, how much did you lose? Right? And most people will say, what? We lost $10,000. Is that correct? That's what most people would say. Well, let's take a closer look. If you have $50,000 in the opening statement and you're putting in $250 a month times 12, you put in an extra $3,000. And if at the end of the year you only have $40,000, you actually lost $13,000. $13,000. You want to keep that in mind. Let me give you a little better example. Maybe you can see it better this way. Let's say you started the first of this year, you have $100,000 in your account. You're putting in $500 a month, right? And at the end of the year, you have $80,000 in your account. Wow. Most people will say again, you lost $20,000. But is that correct? Let's take a closer look. You started with 100,000, you put in 500 a month. That's an extra $6,000 that you put in. But at the end of the year, you only have 80,000. So you can't look back and say, man, I lost 80,000 that year. I mean, 20,000 that year. You actually lost 26,000. You lost 20 from your 100 plus the 6,000 you put in. And now at the end of the year, you closed out with 80,000. That's a lot of money to lose, right? And so they say, don't worry, it'll come back. It never comes back. What happens is the market stabilizes, and now you putting money in it, putting money on top of that, the money that you have there. Instead of next year you start with 80,000, you putting in 6,000, so that makes it 86,000. Your money that was there made a little more money, right? So now you're back up to 100,000. Man, my money came back. No, it didn't come back. You put more, and you forced the money that was there to work a little bit more. So now you are back to where you started, a year and a half ago or 2 years ago. But that's not the case. We want our money to stay. We don't want our money to come and go. So look, when you have a 401k, and I know a lot of times when we look at this information, it's written in retirement language. So we read all kinds of stuff and we don't get it. Well, you need to get somebody to explain it to you so that you will understand it, because it's your money and you need to know. But when you have your 401k, there are different areas that you can put your money in for your money to grow. And just really just glancing over it, a lot of times they have it broken down this way. Conservative fund, right? A conservative fund, you're talking about the funds that you can grow your areas, you can grow your money without a lot of risk. It's not in the too volatile part of the market. So you can grow money without a lot of risk. But the downside to that is a lot of times it doesn't give you a lot of growth. You know, it may have caps and all that kind of stuff. But then you have your value fund, and then you have your balance fund, aggressive growth fund, and then specialized funds. And so the thing about it is, the more aggressive you get, is the more opportunity you have to make money, but also the greater risk of losing money when the market drops. So you just got to begin to understand that putting your money in there for someone else to make a decision as to how your money can go, that may work for some people, but if they're gambling with your money, they may be taking risks that you're not willing to take. So it's time to learn a little bit about it. It's time to get informed. You know, ask someone to explain it to you. It's important. It's your money. It's your future. And this money is to help you in the vulnerable times of life where you may not be able to work. You may want to work, but you may not be able to. So just trying to give you guys a quick overview, a little closer look at the 401k. I want to thank you guys for allowing us to share this information with the community. You know, I look forward to doing this again very soon. Let your friends know, let your family members know. I'll be covering this subject again on Thursday. I'm going to put a little bit